What's up, guys? Wheat Penny Collector here, and today I have a different, more professional video for you guys. I'm going to make an ongoing series of videos that basically details small moments in the United States monetary history. Today, we are going to talk about a man named J.P. Morgan, as you can see on the screen. If you've never heard of him, just think of the company J.P. Morgan Chase, that small little bank that nobody's ever heard of, and you can probably guess what he specialized in. This man was a legend for his time, being someone who could say he helped bail out the entire United States federal government. How could a single group of people bail out the whole government, someone might ask? I'll explain it to you guys, but first, we need to step back in time to the time period directly after the Civil War, or the Gilded Age for short. After the Civil War, industry started to boom. Machines allowed people to produce products faster than ever before, and people had extra confidence in the economy in general. Factories started to pop up all over the country, and many of them made products like steel, textiles, or other goods that shipped all across the world. The owners of these factories were so rich, they made people like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett look like paupers. People often criticize this time period for a variety of reasons, including poor workers' rights, segregation, bad conditions of living, especially in the cities, and especially for the so-called robber barons, which was a nickname given to the super rich factory owners of the time. The Gilded Age was named to represent how rich people got during this time period, and by people, I mean the few on the top. This age is also known for the time where capitalism ran amok. It was like the Wild West. Don't get me wrong, I love myself a bit of capitalism, but when there are no rules, things can become messy and corrupt super fast. The way workers were treated in factories was horrible. They had to work for 12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week in awful cramped conditions with super dangerous machines. The weekend hadn't even become a concept yet, and workers' comp was far from being implemented. If someone chopped an arm, a leg, or even died, their boss would usually just shrug it off and hire someone else. There were so many immigrants from places like Ireland and Germany that a flock of immigrants would take the injured man's job in a heartbeat. To make things even worse, child labor was extremely common during this time. Children were paid less and worked in all industries, especially coal mining because they could fit in tight spaces. Children all across the country sacrificed their future and their education just so they could put enough food on the table for themselves and their family. So you might be sitting in your seat asking yourself how a factory owner became so rich during this time period. Remember what I said about capitalism running amok? Yeah. Things that would be seen as totally illegal in today's business standards were very common among company owners. Because of this, this time period was rife with monopolies in every industry. Companies became monopolies with many tactics, but the most common one was called price fixing, which is super illegal in today's world. So let's say you're a giant company. Let's use Standard Oil, run by one of the richest men in history named John D. Rockefeller, for example. He sees that a smaller oil company opens up down the street, and he can't have that pesky competition impacting his profits. So he decides to lower his prices so low that he loses money on each barrel of oil that he sells. But customers flock to his business instead of the smaller one. The smaller one can't lower his prices or he'll go out of business, but the giant conglomerate has a lot of money, so they can afford to not make a profit. Smaller companies usually ended up getting either bought out or just shut down by monopolies in this time period. And this is why Standard Oil in particular accounted for over 90% of the market share for oil. So where does J.P. Morgan fit into all this? Well, to start, he was the king of banking and corporate mergers for this time, and someone who specialized in helping make monopolies in the age of monopolies was bound to get super rich. After years of economic boom, one of the biggest economic panics known as the Panic of 1893 ensued. Businesses crashed all over the country, and unemployment rates soon went as high as 25%, and in some areas as high as 43%, like in my home state of Michigan. So how did this all happen? Well, to start, there were a variety of reasons, so I'm just going to name a few of them. Railroad companies were a big reason to begin with. Some giant railroad companies, such as the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad, started to collapse, and then there was a stock market panic. There was also an issue with many different food markets, such as wheat in Argentina, of all places, which caused investors to lose even more confidence. And to make things even worse, the Sherman Silver Purchase Act of 1890 was instituted in order to stop the deflation of the US dollar. Deflation is where a dollar gets less valuable over time. And the government was required to buy millions of ounces of silver, which drove the price of silver super low, which made people panic even more. And yeah, this is a huge sum up of the crisis, and has many different details left out. So if I missed something, that's why. But something you should know for background, people used to be able to go to the bank and hypothetically exchange their dollar bills for silver or gold, since at the time, that is what the United States dollar was backed by, and this happened until the 1970s. Many people tried to take gold out of the bank during the panic, only to find out the Federal Reserves did not have enough gold to reach the demand of all the panicked citizens. President Grover Cleveland, who was a Democrat, was worried about the level of debt the government was facing at the time. And when the government was only days away from collapsing on their debt, J.P. Morgan stepped in and had a plan. Morgan, as well as the English bankers named the Rothschilds, had a solution. Morgan made a plan for the government to buy gold, but Cleveland initially wanted to sell government bonds to the public in order to get themselves out of the hole. This solution by Cleveland was ineffective, since it would not bail out the government in time. So Cleveland very reluctantly accepted the sale of around 3.5 million ounces of gold to the federal government to replenish their gold reserves. This was obviously a huge scandal on Cleveland's part, since robber barons were already bad in the public eye and seen as corrupt by a lot of the common people. And this made him lose the subsequent election to William McKinley, who was a Republican, in 1896. Well, that sums up a time where a group of regular or so-called regular citizens bailed out the United States government. The Gilded Age is often an unknown time in our history to a lot of people, and the late 19th to 20th century of American history fascinates me. So if you liked my video, give it a thumbs up and share it on the interwebs. And yeah, I mean, I'm sorry the video is kind of crappy. It's kind of my first video, my first real professional video where I'm not recording with an iPhone. So, thanks for your understanding. I mean, it's just going to get better for here. So, yeah, if you liked it, leave a like and subscribe.